The staff of the Tuscaloosa News and TideSports.com join WVUA 23's Jen Chapman at Will Hagen's Grill and Tap Room for an in-depth analysis of the Crimson Tide and SEC football. This is Tide Sports TV.
Welcome into Tide Sports TV, brought to you every week by WVUA 23 News and the Tuscaloosa News, TideSports.com, the premium website for Tuscaloosa's news coverage of the University of Alabama athletics and Rivals Network Alabama team site. Every week we start things off with the big picture, brought to you by the Soup Store. Joining me from the Tuscaloosa News is Cecil Hurt. Cecil, Alabama gets a 37-10 win over Middle Tennessee State. Some good, some bad. Let's review the game a little bit, and we'll start with the offense. What did we learn about Alabama's offense?
Well, I thought they did a pretty good job throwing the ball horizontally, getting some guys in space, particularly Kenyon Drake. Didn't throw the ball vertically very well. As they did against Wisconsin, started slow in the run game, got better as the game went on. Threw two interceptions, one for Jake Coker, one for Cooper Bateman, that really were not what Nick Saban wanted to see. So they did some good things, as you said, and then they did some things that they want to take out and eliminate from games going forward, particularly turning the ball over.
It kind of looks like, in my opinion, that they were practicing a little bit more with the quarterbacks in the passing game and maybe a chance to not run down Henry and make him have to work so hard, as he's going to have a long season ahead of. Would you say they would do something like that?
Well, I mean, they've tried not to overwork Derek, but you got to win the game that you're playing. You know, you can't sit there and worry about the next game or the game after that very often. You want to improve on the things that you do, and they certainly didn't show everything, and certainly some of the things that they did show, I think they were, trying to implement in the offense, knowing that they had a little cushion to do that. But I wouldn't say that it was just a practice game. Middle Tennessee, it would have been a different game. Middle Tennessee really hurt themselves in the first half with turnovers and not taking advantage of some field position when they had it.
And turnovers is something Saban has harped on repeatedly that he wants to see more of. 4 turnovers and a blocked punt. That's pretty good out of them.
Yeah, a blocked punt for a safety is great. That's one of the best things you can do. Outstanding special teams play there. As much as people are worried, and rightfully so, about the field goal kicking. To say, oh, the special teams are terrible. They also had a block punt for a safety. The return game was good. The coverage game was good. So they just have to continue to work on field goals. But they were +2 in turnovers, but that doesn't mean you want to throw 2 interceptions.
And I think with special teams, people tend to forget that there's also the defensive side of special teams. They usually just think about the offensive side.
Right. Like I say, you block a kick, you cover well. That's all part of it. And Alabama should do those things. They have athletes to do those things, but still some things they need to work on. But it's not like it's just a disaster in every phase of special teams.
Coming into the season, most of the question marks regarding the offense, the defense has been hailed as they're expected to have a great front seven. The secondary has gotten better, but they have a tough task ahead of them. Ole Miss right now is leading the country in scoring offense. So what is this defense going to have to prove this weekend?
Well, they need to get some pressure on Chad Kelly and get him out of the comfort zone, which UT Martin and Fresno State, let's be honest, they just didn't have the athletes to do, weren't good enough to do, and Ole Miss is almost playing against, I hate to use a phrase that is insulting to teams, but it's like they're playing against tackling dummies, playing against air on some of those plays. Particularly UT Martin, who's not a FBS team, who's not a very deep team, or they couldn't cover a totem pole. I mean, there's nothing they can do.
Honest opinion out of Cecil.
So yeah, and that's not. It's just a classification thing. And so if what you want to do, if what you're built to do is run up 70 points on a team like that, Ole Miss was able to do it. So we'll see how they're able to run on Saturday. They're going to have to at least find some way to run. Laquan Treadwell is going to make some catches. He's a great receiver. Everybody who wants to get upset about the Alabama secondary can get upset right now, because I will guarantee you that Laquan Treadwell will make some catches against Alabama on Saturday.
There's your fair warning. He is quite the receiver. And looking, Ole Miss is the first SEC team to post 2 games back-to-back of 73-plus points. Obviously, that trend is probably not going to continue, but do we expect high production weekly now out of Ole Miss?
Well, we'll see. Like I say, I need to see Chad Kelly against a little higher level of competition than he's played so far. Now, he may be great, but it hadn't been his history to be consistent. So we'll see how he plays once he gets into SEC competition. I'm sure he'll make some plays, but you also need to make him make some negative plays, and we'll see how he responds to that.
And because Ole Miss has had such great production on offense, there hasn't been as much talk about their defense. But what are some of the strengths that Alabama's going to have to really focus on?
They've got a big front four. Kimdichie is a tremendous athlete. Their other guys are young, but they've recruited big bodies in there. Tried to change that around from some of the Ole Miss teams of the past that were a little bit undersized. I don't know. Again, it's so difficult to judge by the competition. I don't know if they'll be as good in the secondary as they were last year when they were very good. But we'll see. You just can't judge that against UT Martin and Fresno. So they've got athletes everywhere. They run to the ball. They'll be aggressive. Kimdichie is a hard guy to handle, and they can move him around and spot him. It's not just like they go, you line Cam Robinson up on him. They'll go to a different alignment and try and get him away from that if they can. So you've got to be aware of what he's doing, and you've got to be physical up front because they're not as deep as Alabama in their front rotation, but their first 4 or 5 guys are pretty good.
So this could be quite the matchup, maybe going down to the end.
Yeah, it's an SEC game. You're going to play against good athletes. Again, they've played 2 teams that they should beat, and they've beaten them badly. And so, yeah, it could be a close game. We'll see. It was last year. It traditionally is not. It wasn't 2 years ago, but Ole Miss has added some athletes.
And going a little bit bigger picture to the SEC, quite the weekend for the SEC. Arkansas falls to Toledo at home. Tennessee was up 17-0 on Oklahoma and lets that go, and they lose at home. Auburn got a huge scare from Jacksonville State, which arguably could have become the biggest upset in college football, at least since Michigan, App State. What did we see this weekend in the SEC?
Well, those were the games that people are focused on, and it's disappointing that Arkansas wasn't more efficient scoring the football. They had 515 yards total offense and really only scored 10 points. They had 12, but Toledo took an intentional safety during the game. So they needed to be much more efficient in the red zone. They had a chance to score on their last 2 possessions and win the game, and just couldn't complete plays down in the red zone. So that was a problem for them. And they're a team that's not built to score quick, not built to score in numbers, and it caught up with them. We'll see how they bounce back against Texas Tech. Auburn, if Auburn goes down and beats LSU on Saturday in Baton Rouge, everybody will forget about the Jacksonville State game. If they don't, then everybody will talk about the Jacksonville State game. You just have to be prepared for one or the other. I had picked Oklahoma to beat Tennessee. I thought that they would. Now I'm not going to say, I thought Tennessee would get ahead 17-0 and wouldn't be able to hold on. But you just have to cross that river sometime. Alabama did it in the first game of the 2008 season when they blew Clemson out in Atlanta and established an identity and showed that they were going to win those kind of games and dominate and close out games. And Tennessee just hadn't done that yet, hadn't done it under Butch Jones. Maybe they'll get that win. They're more talented than they were. Whether they're going along the same path as Ole Miss, we'll see. But they got a tremendous amount of hype last year, based on last year going into this year. And really, if you look at Tennessee's schedule, who'd they beat last year? Who's their best win last year? Iowa in the bowl game, I guess. And you just got to, if you're going to beat Oklahoma's, Alabama's, LSU's, Georgia's, you got to step up and do it.
All right, that's all the time we have right now for the big picture, but Cecil will be joining us again later in the show to help answer your questions. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to Tide Sports TV. It's now time to go inside the Tide, brought to you by Ziegler Meats. Joining me is Tommy D's executive sports editor at the Tuscaloosa News, very official. So let's get started. Tommy, we're going to talk about the quarterbacks first because that's obviously the glaring situation. Jake Coker and Cooper Bateman. What did we see Jake Coker do well this past weekend?
Well, I thought Jake looked really good in the season opener against Wisconsin and not quite as good against Middle Tennessee. I think there's still some timing issues in the passing game with the receivers. Part of that probably has to do with the fact that you had maybe up to 5 people really competing for a while for the starting job. and that means less snaps for everybody. And then he missed a little time, at least a few practices with an injury a couple of weeks before the opener. So usually timing gets better the more you work with the ones, and I think he's getting more and more of that. I think he's the guy right now. But that's the main thing. They want to use those quick screens where you take the snap and sling it out to the receiver, almost immediately. And those worked really well last year, but they had Amari Cooper last year too. But the timing was much better on those. The receiver was able to get the ball, straight off the snap and turn and try to do something with it. And so far, and in the first game, he also missed some downfield passes. So what I think, what I like about him, he seems to go through his progressions and through his reads better than a lot of quarterbacks I've seen. He looks for the first guy, the second guy, the third guy. He needs to get to where he does that quicker. I think it makes decisions quicker, but he's got a big arm, and you can't teach that.
And with it being the second game, it still was the first one at home. And if you heard what he said after the game against Wisconsin, it still was kind of sinking in that he was playing quarterback for Alabama, and he said this was something he dreamed of. So then playing it for the first time at Bryant-Denny Stadium, I think that takes on a different level. And kind of like Blake Sims last year, it took him a little while to actually get into his role as quarterback and feel confident, and that might be what we're still seeing with both of these quarterbacks, is just getting into the role of being an Alabama quarterback.
Right, and I think now that it would seem the competition part has settled and that it looks like Jake Coker's the guy, now you're in that role. You're getting more of the snaps in practice. The newness of it wears off, and it becomes about football, and that's what it needs to be. Just because you're a senior and you've been around for a while, you haven't been around Alabama for a while. You haven't been in this system the whole time. So, it takes time to settle in. And timing is a big thing in the passing game. And that's where I expect to see the most improvement as it goes on is to work out the timing issues so that, there was A.J. McCarron was here so long, there were routes he would throw, and Kevin Norwood hadn't come out of his cut yet, but he knew exactly when and where the ball was going to be. That's not happening right now. And eventually maybe it will.
And Coach Saban did not say today who would be the starting quarterback. He kind of left it open again. But you've got to think heading into SEC play, they're going to stick with one guy unless somebody, explodes in the game and does not do well. So is it fair to assume that Jake Coker will lead this team against Ole Miss?
That's what I expect. If it happens differently, Ole Miss will probably be surprised too. But, I do think that you might see Cooper Bateman at some point, whether this game or another, kind of a package built around some of the things he does well with the mobility, maybe zone read stuff, maybe some kind of option, maybe some kind of rollout passes or something. I could still see him as a change of pace guy, but the first thing you got to do is establish who your guy is, what you do well with him, and build the offense around that.
And establish that offensive identity. So right now, would you say the offensive identity is more going to be built around the running game moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's going to look a lot more like it looked against Wisconsin than it looked like. I think they were working on the passing game, as you mentioned earlier.
We're on the same page on that?
Yeah, against Middle Tennessee. Especially, I think they planned to bring in Cooper Bateman to start the second half, which meant they had to get a lot of things done in the passing game in the first half with Jake against Middle Tennessee, because they were hoping to be in a position where they weren't going to play him in the second half. And then with Bateman, they did some of the same things. But I think you're going to see them more operate out of the pistol, which seems maybe to be their base formation. At least against Wisconsin it was, and more as the game went on against Middle Tennessee. I think they certainly want to work that screen game in there, but they want to be a downhill running team. They want to be physical. They don't want to run up-tempo. But I think you'll see some pistol, a little shotgun, and not as much under center. That hadn't been the way it was last year hardly at all, maybe a little more. But you'll also see both backs on the field, Drake and Derrick Henry, which we saw a little bit against Middle Tennessee.
And hey, Damian Harris looked pretty good too. When he was running down that interception, well, that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, he'd be a good defensive back. We know that. Run somebody down from behind. I hope they plan to use him in different ways than that. But, I think he's going to be an important part as it goes on. But he's right now going to be the third back in the rotation. And that's good. It's fresh legs, and he can do something. He's got a good future, I think.
All right, let's talk about the issue a lot of people were talking about after the game, the kicking game. Adam Griffith goes 0 for 2. So now in his last 16 attempts, he's only made 5 kicks. Coach Saban still not harping on him too much, just saying it's a mental block. I'm gonna say stick with him, and this is why. When I was in Wisconsin, Mason Crosby went through a really rough spell, and I said you should just stick with him. And Coach McCarthy did, and I was the only one in the office that agreed with that. And eventually Mason Crosby got it. And the thing I saw with Griffiths this weekend was he's making the distance. It's just either wide. So it's almost like it's just a mental block. And I feel like once he gets 1, 2 behind him, it's gone. I don't know. That's just my opinion. But what do you think about that?
I think it could be a problem. They may be at a point where they need to try somebody else. Doesn't mean that Adam doesn't ever get back out there and get more. I think certainly there's probably a point that he's the long field goal guy. So he'll get more of those opportunities. Most of the kicks, I thought the kick that looked really bad, the 49-yarder against Middle Tennessee, I thought that was an issue on the snap. It was very high. The hold, therefore, gets down late. I don't know if it got the spin on it that you want, the angle that you want, which your fans may not care about, but they're crucial to the kicking game. It's all a timing thing. So he kind of held up and then kind of punched it, and it looked really bad, but I don't think that was so much on the kicker. But the 20-whatever yarder, that's the equivalent when you're standing at what extra point type distance and you've been on a field and you look up, the goalposts are almost so wide apart that you can't see both of them without turning your head. It's the broadside of a barn, and you've got to be able to hit those. They've got to get points when they get inside the 30, inside the 25.
Especially now that they head into SEC play and games will be closer. So
right.
That is important.
Right. So they're going to have to make some crucial decisions in that mid-range, whether they want to try to kick or you're going to see them go on fourth down a little more. But I would also say I want to see more production out of J.K. Scott. He's not last year's punter. He hasn't hit the booming punts that are going to be huge for field position that we saw all last year. And I want to see some spark in the return game.
And he's got to really set up the defense, which is where we're going next. Ole Miss, explosive. This defense, who's got to be a playmaker this weekend to shut down Ole Miss?
They're going to need playmakers in the secondary for sure. But it all starts with shutting down Ole Miss's running game. First of all, you got to make them one-dimensional. Then you got to tee off on the quarterback and get there hopefully without too much blitzing. But I think the real key is on the back end if they can turn the ball over a couple of times. Kelly at Ole Miss has had it all his way and into pretty completing like 98% of his passes. I think it's really 72. But he hasn't played a defense. He hasn't played an SEC defense. Alabama is that. But somebody, Alabama got to the quarterback a little in the first game. Middle Tennessee, with their quick passing game, they never got close to him. They never made him breathe hard. They chased him out of the pocket a time or two, but they need to get the quarterback to the ground, and they need the quarterback to know he's going to get hit. And when they've done well against people like Ryan Mallett and other people that Nick Saban's just taken them completely out of the game, there's a physical element of that quarterback being scared to hold on to the ball.
I think this weekend is Cyrus Jones' time to shine, and he can really make a bigger name for himself. He's already the leader on the team, but I think this is really his weekend to shine.
Well, I don't know if they're going to get a lot of – he's the guy that's going to shut down somebody most of the time so you don't throw to him. So he's not going to get a lot of interceptions. That's going to come more in the safety positions, and I think that's where Eddie Jackson could pop up. Basically, I think they'll probably stick Cyrus on Laquan Treadwell as much as they can and try to make Treadwell not be a factor. If you trade those two and you're playing 10 on 10 and they nullify each other, then that's a win for Alabama.
Awesome. Well, we'll be back with your questions that you posted on TideSports.com right after this break. Welcome back to Tide Sports TV. Now it's time to answer your questions. We get these from the TideSports.com message board. Cecil is back up here. So Cecil, let's start with the first one. Okay. Do you expect Jake Coker to improve mentally, decision-making, mastering the offense, and being able to check down at the line of scrimmage, that sort of thing? That's a loaded question.
Yeah, I hope I improve mentally that much over the next week or so. Experience should help. But, you have to play the games and see. And to say, do you expect it? Sure, I expect guys, the more they play, the better they're going to play. But, there's just no way to tell until you play.
He's got to do the work.
Yeah.
What do you think of the quality of quarterback play in the SEC to this point? Is it a down year for quarterbacks in the league?
Well, I don't know relative to what. And it wasn't great this weekend. Brandon Allen at Arkansas struggled a little bit. Josh Dobbs at Tennessee really struggled in the second half. Florida's situation still isn't settled. Georgia's not throwing the ball particularly well with Hudson Mason. Alabama's working with two guys, Jeremy Johnson, really not living up to the hype in the first 2 weeks. We'll see how he plays. I thought LSU, I thought they got some pretty good play at the quarterback position at Mississippi State, although I thought they kind of shut down their offense at the end. I thought Dak Prescott played pretty well for Mississippi State. Chad Kelly at Ole Miss, who we've talked about, is playing well. South Carolina lost their starter, which is going to make things more difficult for them. So I guess it's a down year if you say, is there a Peyton Manning or a number one draft choice out there? Probably not, but again, it's week 2 of the season, and what we need to see is what kind of progress, what kind of learning curve these guys have.
That's what I was going to say. It's September, so Who knows? We kind of want to see what they're doing in November is when you really decide who has the best quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah, but other than Dak, there's not a guy that I would say, the NFL is really looking at him, really, wants to see what he can do right now.
All right. When should a coaching staff make a change if the starter isn't getting the job done? What factors would play into this? I'm thinking this question is talking about the quarterback situation.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I don't know why, and I'm not being critical of the person who asked the question, but I'm going to let you in on a secret that I've learned watching football and being around football for close to 50 years now. Coaches try to win the game, and in doing that, they actually put the guy they think is best out there. And this belief that there's some All-American over on the sidelines just soft tossing, and if he'll just make a change, he's going to be better than the guy you're pulling out. It doesn't always work that way. It's amazing that everybody doesn't have 2 or 3 first-round draft choices over on the bench, but they don't. If they feel like the next guy can help them win more than the guy they've got in there, they'll make a change. If not, sometimes change just for the sake of changing when you're putting in a guy who's not as talented as the guy you're taking out isn't the best answer. You just kind of got to ride with the guy that you're going with, hope he plays well. Sure, if he doesn't, if he continually hurts you, you make a change, and that's true at Alabama. It's true for Auburn. It's true for LSU. It's true for Texas A&M, and they've all been through that. So the idea, though, that making a change means making it better, those two things aren't entirely congruent.
All right. What should be Alabama's biggest concern going into SEC play?
The 8 teams that they have to play are all pretty good. You've got a difficult schedule. Everybody sees the game. So, the concerns are need to kick field goals better, need to make some instead of missing them, need to defend well, need to run the football, need to be more efficient in the passing game, need to be able to generate big plays in the vertical passing game. They've got the athletes to do that, so we'll see what happens. As far as concern, if you're a good coach and Nick Saban's a good coach, you're concerned about everything.
Each team has its own trouble, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Other than Alabama Ole Miss, what is the most interesting game on the SEC schedule this weekend and then the national schedule? And we'll close with that question.
Yeah, SEC schedule, LSU and Auburn in Baton Rouge is a really interesting game. Nationally, Georgia Tech at Notre Dame, I think will be a really good, really interesting game. See whether Georgia Tech's going to step up and be a team that can contend for the ACC title, maybe contend for the playoffs. So those would be the one. There are some other interesting ones. I think an under the radar game. 2 teams that are off to a 2-0 start suddenly can sort of get a foothold in the East, which, depending on what happens with Georgia may run away with it. Missouri may win it again this year, but Florida, Kentucky this weekend. That's an interesting game.
All right, that's all the time we have for your questions. Again, you can send them in tidesports.com to the message boards, and we will answer them every week. Thanks for joining us on Tide Sports TV.